One day, I'm gonna understand.
What is white privilege?
Don't ask me that.
I think it's like
Wow. I was not expecting that. What is white privilege?
White privilege to me is never having to apologize, never having to worry about whether or not your color is taking up too much space, never having to worry about the name you're giving your child because maybe they'll see it and they won't hire her for a job, or she won't prosper in her life because of a name that you chose to give her.
What is white privilege?
I think that like white privilege is when white people get chosen for things over black people because of like their names or I guess the color of their skin, that kind of thing.
What is white privilege?
White privilege, I think white privilege is like, one day I was watching this video and there was a white guy and they did this experiment where they sent the white guy to a bike rack and he was trying to solve the lock that was on the bike. And everybody walked by, nobody's paid him any attention or anything. And then they sent the black man in to get the bike to saw the chain off, and everybody called the cops, and just because he was black. And I think that's an example of white privilege.
What is white privilege?
White privilege is never having to consider anybody else's feelings or the way that they feel in certain situations. You've never had to think about that being in there because it doesn't apply to you, so you wouldn't know unless it's being brought to your attention. So white privilege is not having to worry about anything but yourself.
What is white privilege?
I think white privilege is when just based on their race that like a white person could get away with something that maybe like someone of another color could not get away with so easily. Like I saw this one video where this person was carrying around, like a white person was carrying around this AK-47 rifle in the streets, and the police just stopped and was like, hey, like, why are you carrying this around? And like, oh, you know, because I can. And he's like, oh, well, sir, do you mind like putting it back at your house? And he's like, oh, okay. And so he did that. And then there's this black person walking down the street, and this was like a video to test for like differences between racial stereotyping or racial profiling. And then there's they let this they told this black person to carry around this AK-47, and then like the police, like from like 50 feet away, he was like, stop, and like pointing the gun at him, and it was like, put your hands on the ground and put the rifle there, and it was like, oh my gosh. And then he cooperated completely and everything was okay. But yeah, I think it's just like the white person was just like, it was just like, okay, cool, man, you're okay. And then as for like the black person, it was just like that was really bad. That's the end of it.
What is white privilege?
White privilege are privileges that benefit whites that wouldn't benefit non-whites, even under the same circumstances.
I would say that white privilege is just kind of the way that society is run. You don't necessarily think about it, but it's there. It's always happening. And just because of the color of your skin, you get treated differently, you know. I mean, I'm sure I've experienced it before, and I wouldn't know it, but it's around us every day. I guess it's just unfair treatment. You know, there's stereotypes. Coming down south to school made me realize it a lot more. You know, living up north, I didn't really realize it. You know, it wasn't very diverse, so it was just kind of a way of life. But, you know, coming down south and being immersed into new cultures and seeing things for the first time, it really makes you understand how white people are privileged, whether we know it or not. You know, we get treated differently, we get treated better in all aspects of life, and it needs to change. So,
What is white privilege?
White privilege is when you can't walk down the street dressed how I'm dressed because the media will portray me as a bad person.
What is white privilege?
White privilege is never having to throw out the makeup sample in the magazines.
White privilege is, I guess, just not having the same opportunities as white people because of the color of my skin.
What is white privilege? White privilege is not having to apologize when you mess up, not having to feel nervous or anxious when you go to class, when you go to school, because you'll see other people who look just like you. White privilege is killing 4 people and not having to go to jail because you were too spoiled. That's white privilege.